But also Lord, in their private life, both in that area as well. Father, we just want to intercede on their behalf and just ask you to give them direction in every area that they go. And once again, Father, we thank you for them laying aside other areas of their life to be a part of this community, to serve the people that live here. We thank you for them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Do you have anybody under public comment? No. Do we have a motion to accept the agenda as printed?
So moved.
Second. I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Michael?
Yes.
Colby? Yes. McSpadden?
Yes.
Cotta? Yes. Bellman? Yes. Long?
Yes.
Essley?
Yes.
Any items unforeseen?
No.
I have a motion to accept the, sorry, going too fast. I have a motion to accept the consent items as printed.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Michael?
Yes.
McSpadden?
Yes.
Cotta? Yes. Bellman?
Yes.
Long?
Yes.
Essley?
Yes.
Colby? Yes.
Item 2, discussion of possible action regarding the budget amendment as presented that includes grant funding, reserves, and expense line items to cover unanticipated expenses for this fiscal year. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I'm going to have Susan Malloy come up. This is a budget amendment is on all three agendas this evening. If you'll recall, when we passed the budget initially for this fiscal year in June, we talked about oftentimes there is a need to do a mid-year. In the past, there had been several throughout the year. That is not the policy that I like to enact. One, we want to be as close as we can, but as you know, right now, things just aren't the same as they normally are. So unanticipated expenses, but they're also unanticipated and reimbursements and revenue. So you're going to hear, I'm going to ask Ms. Malloy to go through the entirety of the budget amendment for all three this evening, so you'll have a good idea. At the end of the day, about 1.6 million in new revenues through grants, reimbursements from ODOT, whatnot, and about the need for something close to that, a little less actually on unanticipated expenses. Some of those are expenses, but we'll get into the specifics of all that. With that, I'd ask Ms. Malloy to thank you, Susan.
So we all know that the costs are going up whenever you're buying, whether it's groceries, gas, or pipes, poles, fiber, whatever. And even though we try to do our best to project those anticipated increases when we did the budget, it's still every day, it's a new world and it's a new cost. And for us just to survive and do the things that we have to do, our expenses are going up. And so what you have in your budget for Fund 11, we have $30,000 in overtime for the construction crew.
If I may, when you reference the specific fund number, will you reference what that is? Because they're not as familiar as we are with the fund number.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
for the street fund. For the street fund also includes engineering and the construction crew. They do a lot of in-house work that saves us tons of money rather than going out to bid for. But we anticipate more overtime because we have certain projects that have to get done so that we can move on to the next step of a different project and just to try to cover our bases. So the overtime for the construction crew at $30,000. Concrete's going up a little. It's not too bad. They're only asking for $25,000 just to get them through the rest of the year. And so for that, we'll check out the reserves, which are a total of $55,000, which is nothing. But also in Fund 11, we have our loan funds that we're doing a lot of capital projects out of our loan funds. But one of our projects for the Highway 20 utility relocation, we had a contract with ODOT, so they paid partial amounts. We paid it up front and we got reimbursed. But all of that comes back in when we got reimbursed. We didn't budget for because you never know when we're going to get it. So, but what we've received so far is $1.2 million just for their reimbursement part, which is not in the budget. So we want to add it to the revenues and then add that corresponding amount in the expense so that we can continue with the other projects. Next we'll go to Fund 18, which is police. And so They had to transition to some new firearms this last year, and we've had several new hires. And when they have new hires, they have more uniforms they have to purchase, all their equipment, all their stuff, and as well as the ammo that goes along with that. And so they've increased their materials and supplies by $26,000 and their clothing by $52,000. And that part will come out of their reserves at $78,000. But the police also applied for a grant, but also didn't make it into the budget because we didn't know if we were going to get it or not. But they did. So we have received the $50,000 from a Cherokee Nation grant from ARPA funds. So they all have their own specifics what they have to use it for. But we're going to add to the revenue in the police fund, and then we'll add to their grant expense line also for that.
And if I may, Madam Mayor, members of the council, we had not finalized the FOP contract when we presented the budget in June. There was some stipulations. If we did some things, we were going to add 4 officers to the contract. We did that. So the budget was inclusive of the potential for payroll and salaries, but we did not budget for outfitting of them, guns, ammunition. So you'll see that. And we've also had a lot of attrition. So we've had a lot of retirements. And when that happens, those folks leave and new people come in. You're buying clothes that are their size, bulletproof vests, all those other things. So we've had quite a few retirements this year, and we've had some folks. So on top of the 4 new people, there's been not a huge shift, but personnel turnover, so that accounts for a lot of that as well.
Okay, so for the Cherokee Nation grant, we, not only the police applied for it, but also the fire and then the emergency management, so we got it 3 different times for 3 different uses. So in Fund 19, which is for the fire, we're increasing their Cherokee Nation grant line and their expenses go with it. And then in Fund 24, which is emergency management, we're going to do the same thing. We're adding the 50 to the revenues and 50 to the expenses for that. In Fund 15, which is the park fund, they went out to bid earlier this year because we budgeted to build a park ranger office, a new building at the lake, but we budgeted like $400,000 to come out of reserves, and the bids came back like double that. It was crazy, but we still are in need of building that, and so we're lowering how we're going to build it, but and redoing the plans a little bit to make it where we can afford it. But we're going to go back into the reserves for an additional $375 out of the parks reserves in order to get this one up. And then Fund 1, which is the general fund. This one, a lot of the salaries come out of 1. We have a lot of everybody's working capital comes out of 1. So we've increased for the finance department. We have promotion ready to be the assistant finance director. In HR, we added additional training with Linville Fields, who's helping us with all of the getting us on the same page. So we put another $50,000 in there to help with that. The police longevity is another thing that didn't get finalized in time to do the budget. So we're adding $40,000 for that to encompass that. There are several items for development service, like a plan for in-car Lowry Street corridor plan. It's a grant for $12,500. The Powder Zone contract amendment for $15,000. They're in need of building out an office space there. They're getting crowded and stepping on each other's feet over there. So we're putting $15,000 to do it ourselves, the office expansion. And then there's a dilapidated house demolition, and the cost of doing that has skyrocketed too. So we're putting in $12,000 for that. There's a couple little ones for community relations to host some workshops in the planning of all these things, and part-time building inspector while the other one's out on maternity leave. Also in the general fund, we had senior citizen had a food grant that we worked through Rogers County to get it, but it's a pass-through through the city. And so the money, they've already used it, but we have to wait for it to come in. It comes to the city, we turn it back to them for the food for the senior citizen. And so we put the money in there to pull the revenue in, and then the check goes right back out. And then the last part is the IT services contract that we have with Rogers County to provide IT services for them. It's $200,000 for the contract itself, and $170,000 of that's going to go toward the salaries and taxes and all that with our 2 new people. But the other part's just going to go on reserves.
That's the contract that the body approved when the council or the county went out to bid for IT services.
Okay.
And real quick, so you'll know, I mean, our fund balances are all very healthy. You know, we piece our budget together. So Fund 11 for streets and infrastructure. These are just taking money out of our existing fund balances. This is us going out and having to collect new revenue. It's money that we've diligently saved and kept in reserves for these types of situations.
Okay, so then the Expo Fund, as you're all aware that we have the Ford and Shelby Nationals coming into Claremore, which is a really big deal. So we're paying $14,000 more in their advertising to get the word out, to make everybody come here to Claremore for that. There's there's $5,000 for our Route 66 passport, and that's more advertising stuff for the Expo to bring people in. Also for the Expo, we had emergency roof repair, we had leaks, and we had the basketball for RSU coming in, so we had to get it fixed right away, so that's $21,000. And then the property insurance came in way over budget in this department as well, so we're going to add $13,000 more for that. So that for all of Expo, it's just $53,000. Then on the last group is Fund 40, which is the CPWA. And there's a lot of different things here as well. So some of them is like the overtime for sanitation. So when we need to hire people, we have to have our other ones work overtime, so we get someone in, we get someone trained. So overtime for sanitation at $35,000. Our landfill, the tipping expenses are getting higher all the time, and so the landfill, they need to increase it by $100,000.
And Waste Management has drastically increased their prices this year after our budget was established.
And then the infrastructure for water, we have our last lagoon cleans for the water treatment plant, but we have to be able to finish that project before they can go to the next step of the water treatment plant. So the last clean of the water treatment plant lagoon is for $200,000. In the sewer, they're having issues as well with overtime, and so $15,000 for them. The transformers, just like everything electric, has skyrocketed every day from week to week. It goes up. And in order to try to stay on top of things so that we have the items available that we need in order to do our jobs, they need $250,000 more in transformers. And if they don't use it, it's saved right back in their fund. But this is to try to get them through because everything keeps going up. Also, they're going to do a service and labor. They're going to outsource upsizing of 2 miles of electric line in the area that they need for it to happen. And we don't exactly 100% know how much that was going to cost yet either, but we're putting $200,000 in there just in case. Again, if they don't use it, we'll go right back to it.
And estimates for that project have come in anywhere from $81,000 to $115,000. So, but to Susan's point, contractors are getting away with charging what they really want right now. So, I don't foresee us using that much money.
Is that the Heritage Hills?
No, Heritage Hills has already been awarded. That contract's going to be supposed to start this week, obviously with the weather. So we have the phase of line about 2 miles that goes east on Blue Star that serves Wind Ridge, Fieldstone, East Ridge, Oak Ridge. that line is undersized. That circuit is, so we need to put an appropriate. It was fine until we added out farther to the east. The farther away something is, and the more houses you put on, you get into that line loss conversation. So that's to upsize that line, and frankly, a contractor can do that much faster than our guys can because we're out, no pun intended, every day putting out other fires and other maintenance issues. So.
Well, so the total in Fund 40, the CPWA is $836,000 to dip into reserves for that. So the total is 3.2 million, which sounds really big. But out of that amount, 1.6 is money that we already have. They're just not budgeted in the reserves, so it's money that we already have. And so the 1.5 is what we're dipping into our reserves. The biggest is our CPWA and park for that new building. Any questions?
With that, she went through everything for all three. This will be an agenda item for again, we've had this conversation about the costs. So you've heard me talk specifically about transformers being one of our biggest costs and how a few years ago they were $1,500 and then they're $5,300. Well, last week's estimates were $6,500 and $7,000 a piece for the same thing.
And what's the timeline?
Well, so for $7,000 they're on hand. For $5,500 is a 45-week wait time. I mean, there are issues with this entire industry that just really frustrate me.
That's not right.
I 100% agree with you. I asked Todd, and I can't remember. I said, what did we specifically budget for transformers this year? It was a ludicrous amount compared to years prior. And we still don't know that we'll get through. It was about 1.5 million, 1.6 million. With the pricing that we're seeing right now, as we put next year's budget together, when I start that process with all of the different departments and the finance committee going through February, March, and April, we may have to budget $2.5 million for transformers alone.
Can I ask, how many do we have on hand?
I don't know how many we have on hand right now.
Okay.
But, a Red Plains, phase 3 is 60 houses, and they throw them up like that. It doesn't take us long to go through transformers. And we don't want to stop the growth and the development because those things have already been approved, but we also have to. Now, we're fortunate that over the years, we've always budgeted appropriately and had healthy reserves to address situations like this, but something has to happen on a federal and global scale with our economy. The bleeding is ridiculous. And these are not things we control, but they're things that we have to provide. So, but as we go through that, I'm going to always take every opportunity I can so this body knows and the public knows that this is not misspending. This is really good management of the budget. We just don't control these costs. We don't control these costs anymore than we control the cost of gasoline or diesel fuel, asphalt, all of those things. But we have to continue to provide these services. And so my hope is that we don't need to expend $250,000 for the rest of the year on additional transformers, but we just roll that over like it's not money we don't have. But it's getting tougher and tougher. She referenced insurance at the expo. Dave comes and does our property liability through OMAC. Sometimes those are on different schedules. We don't get some of that stuff till after the fiscal year starts. I'm telling you all this as individuals, the people listening at home, and everybody. Homeowners insurance and auto insurance this next year, if you're renewing, you're going to feel it.
Yeah.
Because of inflation and a lot of that's based on what the markets are doing. We're not exempt from that either. So we're trying to prep up for those things. I feel like I can't say enough, be ready. And I thought I did that last year, and we're still getting faced with these. When we double the cost of something and budget for it, and that's still not enough, that just tells you we've got some unknowns out there. So that being said, I appreciate all of our department heads. The days of coming multiple times throughout the year to do budget amendments, which were years ago are done, I hope. I think that it's appropriate. Hey, we're 6 months in. Where are we standing? What do we got? What are we dealing with? What do revenues look like? Revenues are good, but again, if we don't have the transformers, then the cost keeps going up. And that's with everything, to Susan's credit, whether it's wire or poles or gasoline or people. You're going to see some overtime because it's tough for us to keep people right now. The labor market's a real challenge. We'll have people that'll leave for $2 more an hour, regardless of benefits or retirement, because that's not where their heads are when they're 24 and 25 and don't have kids in college and all those other. So we have the same challenges that the private sector does when it comes to labor as well. So we're down 4 or 5 sanitation drivers right now. So you can imagine the amount of overtime it takes for those that we do have to make sure everybody's trash gets being done. Any other questions, Mayor?
Any other questions? We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
A motion second. Any questions? Call the roll.
Colby? Yes. Michael?
Yes.
Long?
Yes.
Essler?
Yes.
McSpadden?
Yes.
Cotton? Yes. Feldman?
Yeah. Thank you, Susan.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Motion is second. 2 seconds to adjourn. Call the roll.
Michael?
Yes.
Cotton? Yes. Feldman? Long?
Yes.
Essler?
Yes.
Colby? Yes. McSpadden?
Yes.
Call to order the Claremore Public Works Authority. Note the roll. Do we have a motion to accept the agenda as printed?
So moved.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Michael?
Yes.
Cotton? Yes. Feldman?
Yes.
Long?
Yes.
Essler?
Yes.
Colby? Yes. McSpadden?
Yes.
Any items unforeseen?
No.
Under current business, item number 1, do we have a motion to accept the consent items as printed?
So moved.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Call the roll. Someone have a question?
No, I'm not finished.
Thank you so much, Starting early. Yep.
Put him in a trash truck.
Yeah, we need drivers.
Yeah, so I don't want this to be thought of as a question. You okay?
No, I'm just having technical difficulties. Hang on.
You take all the time you need. Other than Justin, I guess.
We're halfway through the day, so we'll get
Josh, you're an IT person. You're an IT person. I'm saying.
I was like,
You come over here, kid.
look how good he is. He just walked in. He's scared into working. That's an IT guy.
Okay, so we were on the consent vote?
Yeah, we had a motion by, who made the motion on the consent item? Justin, and a second by
It was Melissa.
Melissa.
Okay, Michael?
Yes.
Cotton? Yes. Feldman?
Yes.
Long?
Yes.
Essler?
Yes.
Colby? Yes. McSpadden?
Yes.
Item number 2, we've already been covered with Ms. Malloy.
Motion to approve. Second.
The motion is second. Any additional questions? Call the roll.
McSpadden?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Cotton? Yes. Long?
Yes.
Essler?
Yes.
Colby? Yes.
Did we get you hurt? He started, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second, call roll.
Michael?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Cotton? Yes. Long?
Yes.
Colby? Yes. Municipality?
Yes.
Tesla?
Yes.
Call to order the Claremore City Council meeting. Call the roll. We have a motion to accept the agenda as printed.
So moved. Second.
Wow. 2 motions, 2 seconds.
Michael?
Yes.
Cotton? Yes. Feldman?
Yes.
Long?
Yes.
Tesla?
Yes.
Colby?
Yes.
Municipality?
Yes.
Any items unforeseen? Okay. Mayor's report. I want to thank Deputy Mayor McSpadden for filling in for me.
It was my pleasure.
And not going too fast. I appreciate that. And it being the beginning of 2024, since I wasn't here last time, I did watch. It was really good. I'm really looking forward to 2024. I think we have a really good group of people here, that serve on the council. And I am excited about the potential for what can happen this next year with all of us. I just really feel confident between that and city manager and the city department heads and the staff. I think we're going to see some good things that start in 2024 that will carry us hopefully for a long time. Awards and presentations, Mr. Manager.
Just the communication from me.
Oh, communications.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. As you all know, we do a quarterly update on each of the areas that our contract covers with you. And so really this evening, you'll pull up their presentation, is focused primarily on the business retention expansion, which is a very critical conversation, always as a part of what we do, but really looking at where our economy is right now is important. So you've got to go to the next slide. So a big portion of that is always the attraction industry that's looking to come here. So the numbers you see before you are those for calendar year 2023, January to December. And so these are primary job creators, so industrial operations within the aerospace components, plastics, defense, and things of that sort, looking at Claremore's industrial park and its sites there. And so
Transformer manufacturers?
pardon.
Very long conversation we've had last week. Can we build it?
Yes. Certainly are looking to attract those, but no, not currently. And so projects received, those are requests for proposals or RFPs received from Tulsa Chamber, Oklahoma Department of Commerce, for companies that are looking here and actively searching here. And so of those received, we submitted on 30. And so that is important because that tells us what stock we don't have or what we might be missing. Some of those, frankly, may not fit here, and that's okay. And so those that are looking for more than 600 acres are probably going to go to one of the mega site parcels you see at Mid-America's Industrial Park in Pryor or Tulsa Ports of Inola. And so kind of breaking those down, that's what it looks like. And so of those projects submitted, they can be in a variety of status as far as they're getting additional data, or we're doing what's called a site visit. That is where the company and or its site selector, which is kind of the agents that search on behalf of those corporations, actually come to Claremore and look at the sites and evaluate. And so those are active projects that we've got looking here at this time. I do want to make a note going into 2024, we have become much more strategic, really starting Q4 of 23, with what projects we're submitting, working even more diligently and closely with the city engineer, city planning, and power and light to really ensure that the projects we're submitting align with the infrastructure goals of the city and making sure that the return on investment those companies might be making from capital and jobs justify the investment that might be needed on the infrastructure. And so it's a little bit of a shift. We've kind of always done that, but not to the degree that we're doing. And so you will start to see a stronger difference in the number of projects received versus submitted, because we're getting a lot more intentional with what projects that we really think we want to spend time and capital on. Go ahead. So more sales tax growth. You all know about this very well. I do want to caveat the numbers before you. So the numbers at the bottom are as of December 1st. As you all know, that is data collections as of December 1st, but we know that those collections run behind, and so the numbers reflected are not comprehensive of all of 2023 as a calendar year. So just want to caveat that. But we find these are important, as you all know. Municipalities in Oklahoma rely on sales tax growth. And so on the left, on the blue side, of those brands represented, those are what those brands alone, holistically between January and approximately October, brought into the city in sales tax revenue. And so certainly important. We point those out because, as you all know, we are in contract with you to recruit retail brands. And so those are all brands we have brought into the market to justify that expense there. On the right, equally but slightly different, equally important, those are new businesses or businesses that were retained, that were subject for sale or ownership transition or growth or relocation. And so again, slightly different, but all new sales tax coming into the city. Housing. So you'll start to hear more about this. We've just released our final analysis of a housing study which we did in partnership with the city and Catalyst Commercial. And so the highlights of that, you'll kind of see 3 takeaways there. It's about a 40-page document. And so we will be going on kind of a public roadshow across the community to kind of share those results and what we're finding. Long of the short is that we are 451 houses short over the next 3 years to meet current demand. That does not include the estimated population increase and growth demand that might be driven by projects like 3 Center and L that are located at the Port of Inola, expected to house 1,000 employees in the next 5 years. We know that some of those are going to live in the city limits. And so this allowed us, it's pretty comprehensive, and we can get into this in further detail, but breaks down the city into a number of quadrants, not from a political boundary standpoint, or overlays or any kind of zoning requirements, but really looking at our most low income areas is positioned right next to our highest income area. And so as we're looking at utilizing the pattern zones and other tools that you all have invested in, how can we do that more strategically? How can we do that to where there's potentially less public conflict? How do we make sure those developments align with the overall look and feel and goal of the adjacent areas? So a lot of different engagement sessions across the community, and so as I said, we'll be sharing that analysis in further depth over the first 2 quarters of this year throughout the public, but then really looking to start to take that data to inform strategies and how do we find some balance throughout our residential groups. As you all know, and you're going to have a more in-depth in quarter 2 of this year on workforce, we've been partnering with you to offer a scholarship training program to Rogers County citizens. That's in partnership with Rogers County body as well. And so very proud to share that we've had 205 Rogers County residents apply to go through Northeast Tech. Of those, 99 students have already graduated or are currently finishing their program and set to be enrolled or employed throughout Rogers County. And so we know that that's critical. Of those, 92% were low to moderate income. And so we know that we're certainly hitting our grant requirements for 51%. So we know that this was just beginning to scratch the surface of the needs to meet there. In addition to that, we launched a micro-credential. Micro-credential is 3 classes, so 3 college classes that get you a credential. So it's not a degree, it's not a career certificate, it's somewhere in the middle. So that's higher education's product for that. And so those are things like drone pilots and accounting and HR. And so you're going to get some basic principles that make you more employable than a high school GED or equivalent, but also aren't necessarily a full degree. And so a number of applicants going through that program as well.
On the housing, what's the projected growth rate that you're using? Do you have a number?
3 to 5% would be conservative. That's without any other, that's unanticipated impacts. So any major industrial, healthcare, so on and so forth. That's what we've averaged.
How's that compared to the state?
It's ahead of the state. I say the state is an average whole. If you look at the Tulsa and Oklahoma City metros and their 2 adjoining counties, it's slower. Those are kind of the 2. So Rogers County historically 5 years back was the second fastest growing county. Now we're the sixth. It's not that our rate has not slowed down where we dropped in that ranking, and so Tulsa and Oklahoma City and their two adjacents sped up in rates. So they've sped up faster, but we have not slowed down.
How many did you say were down, projected over the
451 units. To me, current, that's just current
The next
demand
5
today.
years? 3 years.
And that's just single family.
Do you know how many units of the pattern zone housing have been developed?
We got how many applications on the pattern zone? 23?
We got 29 proposed, but only 8 have actually been marketed.
And something to keep in mind too, at the last census and kind of that breakdown, well, Rogers County was predicted to have a 40% growth rate between 2020 and 2030. Well, I'm not a math genius like Susan, but 40% of 100,000 is 40,000 people in 10 years. So, and we've had meetings with the Greater Tulsa Association of Realtors, the Tulsa Home Builders. They are tracking, they are telling us, say, you all be prepared. Rogers County, City of Claremore, what happened in Bixby, what happened in Owasso, what happened in you're the next iteration of that. So last year, the calendar year between Rogers County and Claremore, we did almost 300 new housing starts, 298. 128 of those are City of Claremore. I got the report, and of the remainder, or 178, and then the rest are Rogers County. But the Rogers County is stuff that, you step outside the city limits and they're right here. They're Claremore. So it's coming. The growth is coming. And that's why our emphasis and this council's emphasis going back a few years ago when I first started had to be on infrastructure, because we've got to be out in front of that.
Counselor, to that point, you'll notice one of the key findings was working on infill, which obviously the pattern zones and the attached dwelling units that were put in by the city in 2020 are targeted to do. But one of the findings in that analysis, to city manager's point, is you go 5 minutes outside the city limits, that's where we're almost incentivizing the development to happen. The challenge to this body versus maybe others in the area is then you have a loss of that potential utility revenue and things of that sort. And so being mindful of what that means strategically to us as a city and the city limits is something that certainly we need to be paying attention to and do some deeper dives into, because that was, I think, for this body, one of those kind of, not quite red flags, but certainly something to go, hey, there's something here, we need to look at that in order to really incentivize the infill that happens within city limits.
But it would be an increase in sales tax.
It potentially, if they chose to shop and so on and so forth, yes. Yeah.
6%. Any other questions? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Staff reports, Mr. Manager?
As I alluded to earlier, Waste Management notified us today because of weather they had to close the facility that we currently use. So I don't know what that looks like going in through tomorrow. So late in the day is when we got notification. So public listening at home, we don't have a place to take the trash. Once the trucks are full, the trucks are parked. So working through that, we'll just try to keep everybody posted. They'll do their best to play catch up, and if they miss somebody today, get that caught up over the next couple of days. Real quick, brief road conditions update. It is raining now. We do expect it to freeze up a little more overnight. We do have a crew working overnight. Hit hot spots, problem areas, working with dispatch. Kind of a perfect storm. You get rain, you get water, it freezes, and then it warms up, and then the wind blows. So it's just one of those things that everybody across the region, because of the weather pattern, we would have put salt down yesterday, it wouldn't have done any good because it would have rained and froze over. It would have been, so everybody's kind of caught in that. But we had one temporary 30 to 40 minute power outage today because of a ice-covered tree limb fell through a line. But I want to kudos the things that you've allowed us to do and authorize in substation rehabilitations and these line improvements. We have been very, very fortunate. We have not had any cold weather power outages. During the last spell, we had a fuse go that affected a couple of houses. We had a car slide off into a pole, and that was down in that area while we replaced it. But our grid is doing very well. So I'm very proud of the way our guys are are addressing that. Speaking of refuse, for years we've been talking about a transfer station, a place closer to operate, not for us, because we don't need to be in the business of taking the trash once it's collected, but we need a place closer, less wear and tear, less overtime. We have entered into discussions with somebody to utilize the property that we have north across from Sequoia, where we're working on our shooting range, the police training grounds, and so the benefit to that is somewhere much closer, a rate that is more akin to us. There'd be a lease agreement, as well as a place for the citizens of Roger County and Claremore to actually take stuff too. This would be a vendor that has a single stream facility, takes the onus off of us of picking up couches and chairs and all that. So I'll be coming back to you all with more of that. And then the last thing is that our next council meeting is February the 5th. That week, I will have, I'm having somebody come in and clean the ducts in both sides of City Hall and do a lining on that. Some of the ducts are older and there's a lot of dust. It's just time for them to be cleaned, and then we're going to line those. So there may be some apparatus and some air blower things out here in the middle. They do most of the work from inside, but what they use to do everything will be outside. They're going to try to do it in the evenings. That's all I have.
Thank you. Under current business, a motion to approve the consent items as printed.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Michael?
Yes.
Potter? Yes. Feldman?
Yes.
Long?
Yes.
Presley?
Yes.
Colby?
Yes.
Reese Wagner?
Yes.
Item number 3, discussion possible action to approve a request to disclaim any right title interest in and to the following property as described. Mr. Cook.
Yeah, it's a long legal, isn't it?
Yeah, I wasn't going to read all that, sorry.
Well, I'm not either. So. Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council, Mr. Fury. The item before you is a request to disclaim right title and interest on a piece of real property up in the industrial park. And then subsequently for us to file the appropriate curative instrument or evidence of instrument to actually disclaim that interest. So that's basically, in essence, kind of a two-part deal here. This actually came to us from AXH. They did some title work, and when the title commitment, title opinion came back, there was a requirement on there to, in essence, cure their title. And the reason they needed their title cured is basically the city of Claremore acquired this property back in 1932. And over the years, it's a much larger piece of property than what is actually described in the actual agenda item, but over the years it was split off and subsequently conveyed to other parties. We assumed that at some point there was a piece of property that was actually conveyed to CETA, but we do not have an actual, we don't actually have an instrument that actually can state that or show that. Because we do not have that instrument, and CETA subsequently deeded this to AXH back in 2005, it has in essence clouded their title. So AXH has requested that we take the appropriate curative action to help clear their title, and this will help them to facilitate a future conveyance in the future. So that'll take any questions you guys have.
So there's no record as to when the city of Claremore actually gave that property to CETA. Okay.
I would assume, I mean, just going off of, kind of the adjacent tracks, I would assume it was probably sometime in the 80s. But I'm back to the
We believe this is probably a piece of property 1/4 the size of this room that's caught up somewhere. I mean, it's amazing. It's insignificant. It's one of those, oh, there it is, and okay, we can clean that up. It's we find a lot of those things. We have a community that goes back to the 1870s, an economic development organization that goes back to 1946.
Yeah, when I was reading the agenda, I thought I bet it's from the 30s or the 40s.
Oh, it's,
Yep, it's in 1932.
Yeah.
And the railroad that runs through right through the middle of all of it.
Yeah.
That's correct. Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Call the roll.
Reese Wagner?
Yes.
Colby?
Yes.
Potter? Yes. Feldman?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Long?
Yes.
Presley?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Item number 4 is a repeat item we've already discussed. I have a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
A motion, a second. Call the roll.
Michael?
Yes.
Volpe?
Yes.
McSpadden?
Yes.
Autumn? Spelman?
Yes.
Long?
Yes.
Heslop?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn, a second. Call the roll.
Michael?
Yes.
Autumn? Yes. Spelman?
Yes.
Long?
Yes.
Heslop?
Yes.
Volpe?
Yes.
McSpadden?
Yes.
Thank you. Y'all stay safe.